Hello and welcome to I'm Your Biggest Fan, the podcast that chats to your favourite artists about their favourite artists. I'm your host, Jazmin L'Amy, in conjunction with the Noizze podcast network and sponsored by Satanic Tico. On today's episode, we're chatting about Metallica, the absolute biggest thrash metal band on the planet, responsible for influencing probably every band you've ever loved at this point in one way or another. Not to mention their influence on Joe Nally, bassist and vocalist for the metal band Urne. We talk about just how many times Joe has bunked off school for his insatiable hunger for new music, the time he met both Jason Newsted and then later Kirk Hammett, and just exactly which album he ranks far worse than the infamous Sin Anger. Take a listen. So as I explained before as well, like the whole point of this podcast and interview series is to basically like I said before, like take you back to your childhood and like reminisce on the reasons and the band that got you into this career in the first place. And especially like as a musician doing interviews all the time and with social media, I can imagine that a lot of people forget that their favorite musicians just started out as fans like the rest of us.
Yeah.
So the band you want to talk about today, which is exciting, is Metallica. Which,
Indeed.
If someone doesn't know who Metallica is, then they should probably stop listening. But
I feel like a lot of people would say Metallica as well. It's the easy choice, but it's a truthful choice for a lot of people.
Do you know what's the cool thing about this, though? Because I know there are two bands I'm going to interview, and they both want to talk about Iron Maiden, but those two bands sound wildly different. So the cool thing about this is even if your influences are the same as someone else's influences, the way Urne sounds could be completely different to the way another band sounds, because no one's like journey is the same as other people's. So
totally.
I guess like my first question is, do you remember the first time you heard Metallica?
I think, oh God, I want to say it was 1999.
I would
Or
have
maybe
been
a bit before that. Oh, I was young.
I would have been barely 2.
Bless you. God. Well, I remember going to a friend's house, and one of my best mates, who was a few years younger than me, but like he was lucky. Her older brothers were like metalheads. So from like the age of whatever, I mean, he was introduced to it. God knows what age. So I used to always go down there, and like the older brother would be like, "Listen to this." And I remember watching like as a kid, seeing like the Freak on a Leash video, and I was just like, "Fuck." But he played me Metallica 1, and he did it on like some whatever illegal download software like Kazaa or LimeWire. I'm sure some people might remember those. And he played me, but it was the second half of 1. So when it's just like, and he was just like, I'm like, oh my God, I bet you can't, like, I bet you don't know how the first half of this would start. And I was like, there's me kind of like listening to like Meatloaf and Bon Jovi and Aerosmith, and I'm like, I had no idea. I was like well out of my depth. But like the hardest thing I'd ever bought was like Americana by The Offspring, like, and I was like saved all my like lunch money at like fucking middle school, and I was just like, no, I don't know. I couldn't imagine. And I just remember hearing the intro with like the kind of the gunfire with the kind of helicopter and the person shouting. And I was just like, listen to that. And then from there, he played it all the way through.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Like, and it's still out to this day. Like, even though it's like obviously a played out song and it's one of the biggest metal songs ever, it's still it's the risk of it, And I just remember being like, oh my fucking God. But then like the next thing I heard was like something from Load. So I was a bit like, what's going on? Like, who is this?
Quite the jump.
Yeah, that was the moment. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll talk about something in a minute. But yeah, that was my first introduction to Metallica.
Nice. So is that like, because I find, so one of my favorite bands, Guns N' Roses, my favorite song of all time is Welcome to the Jungle, which is also the first Guns N' Roses song I heard. And even though it's like one of their biggest songs, it still holds like a special place to me. So is One also one of your favorite Metallica songs, or has other songs since then overtaken it?
I'd say other songs have taken over it, but it's still like it's a song like you kind of. I mean, you've got these your songs like "Sweet Child of Mine," "Sandman." One, I mean, think of things that were on Kerrang and on Scuzz that were overplayed, so you can't go to it too much because it's been, it's been so ingrained that kind of special. It's like if you have like your like a favorite, like random example. When I first saw Gladiator, the movie, I could only watch it once every 5 or 6 years to have that oh my god feeling again. It's like watching one of them things where I couldn't watch it over and over. Like I know people who watch Lord of the Rings films every month or what have you, and I'm like, I feel like I'd lose what made it special to me. It would just become a nothing.
Yeah.
So when every now and then I put Metallica on, and be it sometimes the S&M version of it, where it's like it's taken on a different form, and there's all these other cool things to it. Every now and then, like I listen to it, and I'm like, that's perfection. That opening, and it's when I see the video, the black and white video, and it kills me because that band was so special, and the things going across Hetfield's face, and just that that opening.
Yeah.
To me, still as perfect as music can be. And thinking about it now, I'm like, I would do anything for that, to have that. But yeah, I still think it's certainly up there for me. And it's like you saying, like, I feel like most bands, when I hear the first album I hear by bands will probably always remain my favorite album by then, because it's just that kind of, maybe more so when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like my favorite Metallica album has probably always been Injustice. My favorite fucking saying that Maiden has changed.
Oh yeah,
Maiden has changed. Yeah. I'd say Seventh Son. I'm a big Brave New World fan actually of Maiden actually. So that was like a big album when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Bruce's comeback. But yeah, for me, it's certainly in the top five. Like, and if I'd never heard Metallica before and somebody played me that, I would still be. I want that feeling again.
Yeah, that like kind of like hairs standing on the back of your neck.
Yeah, 100%. Oh,
yeah. I got exactly the same feeling when I heard "Welcome to the Jungle" for the first time, and just those like opening notes.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, totally. Oh God, love music.
So you were saying there that like at the time before you heard that song, you were listening to like Bon Jovi and Aerosmith. So obviously a song like One is so wildly different to a lot of songs that those two bands released. But like there's a couple of like Dry County, for example, by Bon Jovi.
Yeah, that's literally what. Yeah. Just the second half of that song. Fuck. Oh God. Fuck you know.
Besides the obvious, like what stood out about Metallica over any other bands that you'd heard up until that point? Like what set them apart from everything else that you were listening to at that time?
Well, for me, I mean, I know some people want to go the first 4 albums and like fuck the Black Album, or some people like the first 5. I mean, I'd happily have the Black Album over Kill 'Em All. But what I feel it is with the Ride, Master, Justice, and Black Album is how they would structure songs, and they would take you on this journey, and it would be like wow, like, and then the next song might be whatever, fucking Dyer's Eve, and you're like, oh my God, and then the next song could be this. But as a kid, when I remember first seeing them, but it was with Jason, so it was a photo with them with Jason with the long hair, and it was just this. I'd never seen it before, and I think the thing with them, and Metallica still to this day, wise decisions or shit decisions or whatnot, they literally do what they want and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And it's probably caused a bit of an issue probably as time's gone on, maybe one too many yes men going, Lars, you sound fucking great. And then now we're here and it's a bit of a nightmare. But they just didn't care. And they stuck to their kind of guns and, but I will always let them off because what they did with those first five, I've slowly warmed to load as I've kind of gotten older. But they did. And when I watched I got a box set and it's got the Metallica 89 and it's them on the Justice tour, and that's just at its peak. I think it's the greatest. Like, there's been some amazing live like concerts from the 80s and through to the 90s that have come out on VHS, DVD, what have you. But I watched that and it still gives me this excitement. Like, pull it on and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be, I'm going to have the best 2.5 hours just watching a band in their prime.
Yep.
And look, I think no matter like what it is, you kind of obviously had Lars back then and Jason. Jason's the reason I play bass, the reason I do vocals, even though he's not a vocalist, he's backing vocals, sound like hell. But it's Hetfield. Hetfield, I feel like that's probably the one person I'd meet and I'd fucking faint. And I've been lucky to meet some of Metallica, and I know I felt like I just jumped out of a plane, but I was just like, fuck yeah, no. But I think if I met Hetfield, like, it's, obviously again, as a touch on, it's a shame maybe where they are now, kind of some crappy lyrics and whatnot. Well, there are crap lyrics, but for what he did, what he means to so many people, that's but that guy, just looking at him on the glasses and the long sleeve, fucking just looking menacing,
the embodiment of cool.
Yeah. And then I kind of grow up and realize he's actually, maybe when he says, all his jokes always seem to be really bad dad jokes, and he has a really annoying laugh, but if he didn't do that, everything else is perfect.
Oh, I love bad dad jokes though. I have a lot of my own bad dad jokes.
I mean, I've got time for it, but not when it's James Hetfield looking cool as fuck in 1989.
Oh, that's true as well.
Yeah.
So after you heard One for the first time, like where did your like journey go from there? Like, did you go and explore other songs by yourself? Did you buy an album?
Well, yeah, this I touched on earlier. So I went. Used to be a place called CD Warehouse. I think there was a chain. It wasn't like that big, and I would save money throughout the week. Like, my mum would give me like money for food at school, and I'd save it. I'd starve myself. And you could go to CD Warehouse and you could buy a brand new copy of an album, or they had secondhand. So it's just like, okay. So you would kind of figure out. You'd read your whatever magazines, your Kerrang, like fucking Metal Hammer, Terrorizer, and there'd be, okay, I want to get an album by that band. And then you would go in and you could be like, buy a brand new one, or you might be able to get two for a tenner. And you would buy the one you would want in, and then you would take a punt. Now, I've had some bad times. I've taken a punt on a few albums where I'm like, I've heard of this band, I couldn't tell you anything. I walked away with a band called Orgy once, and Orgy,
I bet you bought it just for the name.
Yeah, I was like, in school they're going to think I'm a right fucking scoundrel. But no, it was Orgy. They were like a new metal band. They did a song with Jonathan Davis called Revival, and that's probably, I saw the name Jonathan Davis and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get that. But I got Injustice for All, and went home and I just studied everything to do with it, the art, the lyrics, who did what, who did this, and I was like, oh my fucking God. And the next week I went back to get my next issue of what next album, and I went to the guy who worked there. Bear in mind I'm like fucking 12 or something, and I was like, what's the next Metallica album? And he was like, get this. And I had Ride the Lightning. He told me, he was like, get this, and I got it, and I was like, yeah. Went home and he told me to get Load. I was like, what a bastard. So I went home and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, Ain't My Bitch or something. And I was like, oh. Like, and I remember taking it back, and I was like, "Not now, mate. Like, can I swap this for the album I wanted?"
Yeah.
And I got that. I got Ride the Lightning, and I got Best of the Beast. I think it's the best Iron Maiden greatest hits comp. And I was like fucking. It was like I was just entered like heaven.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know what to do. Like, it was my first Maiden record. And for me, like, none of my family are like into rock or metal or anything. So I
Okay.
was kind of me and my mate Greg, where we're like from. There weren't many like lads into like metal at all, and
Hmm.
kind of from South London, you have your pockets of people that you find over time, but you need to get there first.
Yeah.
And I remember me and Greg were he was more into kind of like punk, and I was into metal, but we'd each go like, I want to go and see this band. Yeah, I'll come with you, and you can come with me to see this band.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it. And I just like remember just kind of you make mistakes, you buy things, you go to shit concerts, you buy a crap magazine, and it was all just learning. But I think at that time, I was just hungry for Metallica, kind of anything to do with Metallica. But it was at a time when Metallica weren't really what the band I was listening to, and then I would look at them in Kerrang, where they've all kind of got like bleach hair and wearing vests and smoking cigars, and I'm like, is that their dads? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
This
Like,
is not the
this
band
is
I
not the
fell in
band.
love with.
Yeah, but I was just getting like hungry for it, and
Hmm.
yeah, and I just went and bought some of like got the S&M VHS. God, fucking hell! And I got this Cunning Stunts, and then a few years went by, and then it was coming up to Scent Anger coming out, and it was
Ooh.
my first time like of being a Metallica fan, like of a new album coming out. So I think I had S&M, but that's a live album, and I think there was Garage Days just as I was kind of getting into them. But it was new material, and that I just remember the excitement building up to that.
So
What a
good.
joke! Yeah, but
Do you remember the first time you heard St. Anger?
I I bunked off of school to get Scent Anger in a. I went into Croydon to get it, and my parents are out at work or whatever, and got home, put it on. And I didn't know if it was good or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, I'm still young, and I just weren't sure. And I remember that with it, there's like a live DVD of them playing the album, and I just always thought that was better. And I think my dad came home. It was like, how's school today? And I was like, yeah, wicked, mate. One of the best. One of the best. He was like, that's funny because you was in Croydon at 10:30. Was I? Was I? Ah, fuck. I didn't know what to do. And I got caught twice doing that for that album and for the End of Heartache. Same thing. I just left a receipt on the table, and it's the
Uh,
same fucking thing happened. But yeah, it didn't matter to me. It was like, it's Metallica. And then I saw them for the first time at Reading 2003. And
fuck.
it was like almost like I think I was 16. Oh God, I can't even remember what age, 15. I can't even fucking think. And I just remember the lights going out, and I was
So
like the youngest one out of
yeah.
all like the older like metal heads that we went with from our area. And it was just,
Did you
again, I
go
can't even tell if it was good or not.
did you go specifically to see Metallica or are you just going in general?
It No, to see Metallica. I think the rest of the bills. I want to say, mate, maybe System were on the bill. Some 41. I can't really remember, but it didn't matter. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I was I was like the young pup with all the older ones, and like I remember like getting served beer, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, yeah!" All that stubble I've been growing in school, it's won them over.
Paying
But just
off.
people didn't give a shit. Yeah, yeah. Oh God, saying that somebody come up to me yesterday, and they were like, "Mate, I haven't seen you for 13 years. You look exactly the same." And I was like, "That means I've always looked old." Do you know what I mean? I was like, it's not that I meant I look young. It's like, how fucking gutting is that? And yeah, and yeah, I just remember, and I was like, this is. It was amazing. It was
So
amazing.
so that was obviously like a festival setting, and I find seeing bands in
Yeah.
festival settings is so different to seeing them on
Uh-huh.
headline shows. I'm assuming, had you gone and seen them on headline shows after that?
Oh, God. Yeah, I think I've seen Metallica like fucking 30, 40 times. Um, and when it's a hard thing because, they've become a very sloppy band. It's not like going to see Maiden now, and obviously they sound a bit older, but they still sound, the musicians are great. And Bruce, obviously, your voice is going to sound a bit different, but and obviously Metallica, they've let a lot too much slide.
Mm.
But when they're on and they played all right set list and the vibes there, and you've got your mates with you, it don't matter. It's
Yeah.
that that's they're playing the songs and Lars is attempting to do them, and I've had some great ones. I was at that download which Lars missed, and people at the time were like, "Oh, Joey was amazing. He was fine. He played a lot of stuff that's not in them songs." Dave Lombardo from Slayer, on the other hand, I was like, "Fuck, it sounds like it's meant to sound."
Mm-hmm.
Saw him do the whole of Puppets. That was great, and went to like the Death Magnetic release party and what have you. And but when I've seen them and they're good, it's good. But then I've seen them be absolutely bog standard. And whereas, what's the sad thing of like again for bands like you'll never see Maiden and go, that was fucking shit. It might not have been what you wanted, but they still played. They played correct. They played it to the best of what they can do.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Metallica now, it's a really fine line of what you're going to get. But I've had some amazing times, and there was a festival we played, and Metallica were headlining, and I just was with my mates. I just got sorted all our mates' passes. I met Kirk Hammett that day, which is
Nice.
I'll get onto that, which is a funny story of what's happened in my life the last year.
Okay.
And it's just like I was there, and I just remember the intro music coming. Angus looked at me, pulled his glasses down, and then a tear fell down his cheek.
Oh,
And I was
bliss.
like, come on, like buzzing. And it was amazing. And it was just me and like 4 or 5 of my mates just like having the best time.
Yeah. Oh, I fucking love that. And like environment and atmosphere, especially in live shows, I find is so important. And especially in like rock and metal too. Like I get that obviously a band has to play their songs good,
Mm.
but
Mm.
like that's the beauty of live music. Like it's supposed to be a
Yeah.
show and a performance. It's like more visual, I guess, and atmospheric rather than like having it be absolutely note for note perfect
Yeah,
like it is
yeah.
on records. But like
I
you said,
mean,
there's a
for
fine
me,
line.
yeah, I mean, and they tread it too close. But for me, like, there's this whole thing at the moment, so many bands using backing tracks and whatnot.
Mm,
Sometimes it gets a little bit perfect and polished. I like things when there's a little bit of a push and a pull, and you can hear it with Slayer and, what have you. When it's more of the old school kind of fresh bands where it's sometimes it might be a little bit off the beat, like a little bit further back. Or sometimes like Slayer, like I say, it somehow gets faster and it just
yeah.
adds an energy and it makes it cool. But I went to see something last night and I really fucking struggled. Wasn't necessarily in my field of what I like musically, but one of the guys in one of the bands out of the build I actually think is kind of a cool band because they do some stuff slightly different.
Mm,
Invited us out, and I think they were the only band who had like any like melodic passages or what have you, and it was all to a click. I think everyone was sort of to a click really, and it was all very. Oh, it was hard for me.
yeah.
But then a couple of weeks ago, like me and Angus would go and watch an old band, Sacred Reich, at the Underworld,
Mm-hmm.
not in ears or whatnot, and I was just like, it's just a different vibe. It's just a cool vibe.
It's
So
weird as
yeah,
well
but
because like one of the things that I fell in love with about rock and metal is like how imperfect and like dirty and dangerous it is.
mhm,
So to have like backing tracks become such a
Mm,
staple part of people's sets now. I'm like,
yeah,
no, that was like the main
yeah.
essence of rock and metal, was that it wasn't
It,
perfect, was that it was
it
messy.
is. The danger is the one thing. Like when I think of danger, and that's when I think of, to be fair, like I think of young Guns N' Roses, and I'm like, I can't imagine what that would have been like to see young Metallica, where I'm like, I would have felt like it was at kind of fever pitch, like bubbling throughout the whole set. Um, and I do love. I mean, I love that way. There's an energy, and we were fortunate enough to go out with Gajira this year, and apart from the click into the songs, there's no click track, and it just adds like what every night it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from one or two bits where they do the kind of like Jean Michel might get up there and jump off, it was, and you can tell they come off sweating, and I'm like they've really gone for it. And you can tell the bands where it's a bit more contrived. I'm going to run there and I'm going to go, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to do this and that. Come off fresh because they
Yeah.
know what they're doing. When I see Gajir and a few other bands, and it's just like we're going out there and we're just going to go for it. Fucking yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I wish I got to see that Metallica. I don't think my fucking heart would have been able to take it. To be fair, I would have been like, this is the best thing of my life.
You would have just fainted in the crowd.
Yeah. Oh, this guy's having a great time. No, I've died. Right.
So speaking of which, so Urne have two full-length albums, 2021's
Mhm,
Serpent and Spirit and 2023's A Feast on Sorrow. How
mhm.
has your love of Metallica influenced your own music writing, and how has that changed over time?
I certainly think for Serpent, it's some bits I'm like, oh, that's a bit too much. Like we put an instrumental on that album, and there's really great prog bands that do instrumentals, and I don't know how many metal bands do a proper instrumental, but I think there's parts of it are like kind of inspired by Megadeth and Megadeth by Metallica, but it's actually a bit. I was meant to say it's actually a bit more inspired by Megadeth. The
Right.
the, the kind of playing because I wrote a lot of the riffs on that. Whereas I think people go, oh, it's Metallica, and I'm like, no, actually, anything more of the riff style on that song was Megadeth. But there's certain things like having 8 tracks, and I grew up of thinking 8 tracks was the best, and that's what Metallica did for a couple of albums. Give them 8 tracks. I'm like, let's make them 8 tracks amazing. I don't want to
Yeah.
focus on any more than just giving. At one point, obviously, we will have to, but it was like do the 8 tracks, and then on the old Metallica albums, you'd have like the song title, and next to it, you'd have the running time, and not all albums do that. And it was
Yeah.
just like, and it's I don't know, just trying to on both albums having a centerpiece as well. Not a mad artwork where shit's going everywhere. There was with Metallica, there was always something in the middle. Ride the Lightning, and the Master of Puppets was all like the crosses kind of
Mm-hmm.
going right in the middle all the way to the back, and Lady Justice, and that's what I kind of like. And there was kind of bits, but musically, there's some bits. Yeah, I mean it's quite clear we're Metallica fans, and we don't hide that at all. I think maybe on Feast there was a bit less of that. I think maybe. I think there was. I think it was a bit more of a heavier album instead of a kind of classic metal. I do think sometimes I'm like, oh, like the opening of Serpent and Spirit opens up with like a twin guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like a kind of a thing going back to Metallica Blackened, where the kind of harmony guitar kind of comes in. So there's certain bits, but yeah, they are still our biggest. Like if me and Angus are kind of like struggling, I'll be like, Angus, get YouTube on, type Metallica 1986 Canada, and let's watch it. By the end of it, we're like, get the fucking guitar, we're ready.
Oh, I fucking
It's
love
it's
that.
so we do it all the time. It's so sad. Like, and I'll be like, oh god, someone's uploaded a bootleg of a show, Angus, like fucking 1989 Japan. Get it on.
So you mentioned that you've seen Metallica quite a few times on headline
Mm-hmm.
runs and at festivals. Did you manage to catch them at their downloads set recently when they did 2 sets?
No, I didn't. I think we were. Oh God, we were out with Katura, so I believe, and I can't remember where we were, but I'm kind of not gutted about it. I've heard really mixed things, and I just wasn't sure if I would enjoy it. And I've seen them enough, so if I don't see them, I'm never like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, how was it?
It was okay.
Good.
Like I've only seen them. I don't know if you would count downloaders like twice or like I count it as one occasion. So I've seen them
Yeah.
twice. The first time I saw them was on the Hardwired tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then second time was at Download Just Gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first set list was like weird choices, very left field, like
Mm-hmm.
not the deep cuts you think people would want to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like I always like, obviously I love like Enter Sandman. That's all like always going to be
Yeah, yeah.
the biggest one at the end. And when they didn't play it at the end of the first set, I felt empty and like something was missing and like you know what I mean? Like I knew it was going to come in the next set, but I was like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I get it. Do you know, it's weird, isn't it? It's like, oh God, I don't put it on at home because it's been played to death and whatnot. But all of a sudden, you'll be seeing them live, and then they start it, and it's just like, this is great. Like, you know, it's gone out the window. You're having the best fucking time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they finished off on Puppets, I guess, right?
Not on the first set, I don't
Oh,
think. That's what I mean. Like all of their big songs they didn't play until the second set. Like it wasn't spaced out evenly. It was like the first set was all like the weird left field choices, and then the second set was, I guess, what you would consider a normal Metallica set.
it's a shame. And do you know what as well? It's going to sound really silly. I hate the colouring, the yellow. It feels like I'd be standing in front of the IKEA sign, kind of being like, what the fuck's going on here? So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the colour scheme. So, I don't know, it sounds really silly.
What about the
yeah,
album
I'm not
itself?
terrible.
You don't like it?
Terrible. No, I'm not. And I feel really bad that we're on the same booking agency as them. I have to be honest, like, I'd be, I wouldn't be myself if I wasn't. I think the opening track's fine. I think it's really cool. I'd tell you what I will say, James Hetfield vocally sounds fucking amazing for a guy of his age to sound that good. And I think lyrically, I think there's some really cool stuff that he's done. I think the last song's really good, but where people are like, it's 11 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, but 8 of them minutes is exactly the fucking same. But I think there's some really good bits in it. There's some good bits throughout the album, right? But I don't. I think the Hardwired album. And I chat to Jamie Gabberty a bit.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
quite big into that album, and he's just like, I would, that's a battle I'll die for because it's like I think there's some really good songs on Hardwired. There's a couple of really, there's a couple of really like Man Unkind. I'm like, oh God, don't do the play on words. I think Man Unkind's a bit shit, and there's a couple of others. But I think the first 6 songs, I think I like fucking hell. Like, there's some really good things in that. But I just thought 72 seasons. I felt like it took 72 years off my life when I listened to it. To be fair, let alone seasons. So I'm not. It bums me out. It bums me out.
One of my really good mates is a huge Metallica fan as well, and like we were talking about all the singles as they were coming out during the 72 seasons campaign, and I think there was like 3 or 4 singles, and each single I was like, how is this a single? If this is a single, what does the rest of the album sound like? And there wasn't anything like grippy, and they were all very like monotonous all the way through. Like it was very flat. A lot of the
Well, the
songs.
drums are definitely fucking like replaced. It's definitely not live drums. There's no dynamics. Every hit's just like this. It's just like, and I mean, it's literally hi hat and snare for most of it. Just going dididin 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 dididin. But then I see people go, it's the album of the year, and I'm like, right, look, I love Metallica, but I am not going to be mental. Do you know what I mean? It's like I thought that as well. Like when the last Maiden album come out, I was like, fuck. But then at the end of that album is one of the best Maiden songs I think they've ever done. So I let it off. But I think core. That's a bit of a slog. Same with that, saying the new Megadeth album as well. First song, I was like, this is amazing. The rest of it, I was like, oh God,
Disappointment.
Jesus. Yeah. Whereas I will say things like, I mean, yeah, I thought the last Judas Priest album was amazing, and I think this new Judas Priest album is going to be amazing. So, some of the old timers have still got, what Judas Priest did was get a shit hot young guitarist, and he's revived the band, sort of made it cool again. And I think, oh, Metallica, well, but yeah, they can't, can they? They can't go, oh, Lars.
Yeah, there's only so much the same combination of musicians can do over like 40 years without
and
outside input.
Yeah, I would love for them to really go with a young, hungry producer, and they kind of give him the reins to tell him no, that's shit. Like that's not happening. Go with someone. Go with Joe from the Gizir, or fucking go with Matey from Converge. Go with someone to do something completely what people aren't expecting. But they will go with the same producer, the same engineer they've done for the last 3 albums, and they sound so. It's one thing is I think the productions are just so polished and a bit lifeless.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I wasn't a fan of 72 Seasons.
So, of their 11 albums, how would you rank them? I like that you've mentioned S&M, because that's one of my favorite albums of all time. Full stop.
Am I allowed to put that in there as a live album?
Go on, just this once. I'll let you have it.
I'll include Garage Days as well. Right, and Justice for All, Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Black Album. Oh no, Ride the Lightning, S&M, S&M 1. We forget about 2. S&M 1, Black Album, Garage Days, Kill 'Em All, Load. No, Hardwired, Load, Death Magnetic. Rock and roll. It's so hard, isn't it? It's 3 shit songs, 3 shit albums at the end. Do you know what I mean? Reload. St. Anger, 72 Seasons.
You think 72 Seasons is worse than St. Anger? That is a hot take.
I think it's comfortably worse than that. At least with St. Anger, there's a bit. I'd have St. Anger above Reload, actually, because there's a bit I remember watching the premiere of St. Anger, the video, and look, there's some bits on that album that go hard. Then the problem is the song ends up being 9 minutes. I'm like, cut 6 minutes off of each track, and you would have had fucking 10 songs that would have been 3 to 4 minutes of just going like, dun, 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 dun. And people would be like, yeah, fuck it. They just went and made a hard album, which comes in at about 35 minutes, but instead it comes in about 75 fucking minutes. It's too long. And there is some dross on it. But no, actually, okay. Yeah, so St. Anger, Reload, 72 Seasons.
God damn.
That'll change tomorrow.
Mic drop.
No, it will change. I'll be sleeping on that now. I'll be like, you fucked up. The people are going to think you've made a bad choice.
Oh, fuck the people. We're allowed opinions.
God. Yeah, no, definitely and Justice one for me. It's the first one I heard.
Yeah, of course. It's got that sentimental value behind it as well, doesn't it? And that never changes.
Yeah. 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 Okay, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so if you had to direct someone listening to Metallica for the first time ever, what 3 tracks would you say encapsulates them perfectly? Just 3.
Oh, okay, I'm going to pick from different albums. Call of Cthulhu,
Okay.
Ride the Lightning, from Ride the Lightning. I will pick Sanitarium. Sanitarium from Master of Puppets. I'm trying to do like an instrumental, one of their ones where you kind of have the acoustic stuff and then it kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want something completely aggressive, and that'd be Dyer's Eve. So you get the kind of out of this world, massive long instrumental. You get the this is emotional, and by the end of it, you're like, what's just happened to me? And you get the I'm going to get literally kicked in the gut because this is just ferocious. There you go.
Fuck yeah, I like that. Love that. Did you ever watch the So Metallica made like a full-on movie called Through the Never?
Went to the cinema.
Say when I was like growing up in Jersey, like our little cinema that we have was only doing one showing of it, and I was fully expecting every metalhead on the island to be there. So I was like, oh, I'm going to book tickets. It was just me, 2 other people, and 1 other group of people. That's like, I was fully expecting like all the secret metalheads to like converge in this one place. And I was sad.
Oh, Angus and a few mates went to IMAX in Christ.
Nice.
Is it Waterloo? And it was literally like above our head, and I was like, it was so loud, and I was like, I thought the best part of it was as well. To be fair, at the end when the kind of credits roll, where that is just the band playing Orion, just in the middle, and I was just like, yeah, there's none of that other run. To be fair, I don't even know what the film was going on about.
It was so trippy. I can't even imagine what that would have looked like in an IMAX as well. Because that's what I was going to ask. Like, just so much shit happens, and you're like, I'm glad I don't take drugs because this would be so much worse on drugs.
Yeah, I to be fair, I think I would have had a terrible time. I must admit, I can't really remember what the vibe of it was, but I just remember, like I say, at the end of it, it was just them in the middle, and I thought that was quite fitting. They just finished off with Orion, and I was like, oh, that's wicked. I just remember in the IMAX, I was like, this sounds so massive. Like, it just was like, oh, my fucking chest was pounding. And we walked out of there, and we were like, yeah, fucking Metallica, fucking rule. And I was like, never watched it again. You know, never watched it again.
My mum bought it for me on DVD, so I now own that DVD.
Classic, yeah. I've got the score to it somewhere, and it sounds good. It sounds very polished.
But it was such a fucking weird. There was like no storyline to it. I think it was like one of their roadies took something, and then something happened in the van, and then there was a bag, and we never found out what happened in the bag, and then there was like some evil toy clown trying to kill him. I do specifically remember one scene that I thought was really cool. There was like a headless horseman trotting down the street chasing after him, and there's just this one shot of the street, and along all the street lights there's just people hanging. It's a very morbid image, but it looked really cool. I was like, that's gonna stay in my brain.
I certainly remember the headless horseman thing. I also went to the cinema to see it when they did SNM2. Me and Angus went to the cinema, and it was busy, and that was cool. But that's what I felt like that Through the Never thing could have been. I think they lost a shitload of money on that as well, like a lot of money. I'm not surprised. But then of course, they made one of the greatest films ever, Some Kind of Monster. Oh, classic. Now and then.
When did you end up seeing that in your Metallica journey?
I think the day it came out on I can't remember if it would come out the cinema or on DVD, and I remember just getting it on that first day. I fair play to them, fair play to put yourself out there, and some of the extras are insane.
Yeah.
If you ever see the extras, and I don't even know if this is on the extras, but there's a thing where Bob Rock, the producer, Kirk, and Lars go into a studio with Ja Rule to work on this rap track. It is fucking chaos. It's so funny. And they've got this producer like spitting bars at them, and they're like, "Yeah, this is amazing." And it's like The Office, and it's just like, "The fuck's going on here?" And they start smoking and playing dice with them, and like it's insane. But I don't even know if it's on the internet. You can watch it on YouTube. But I remember watching. I think I watched it a few times, and it's just that's it's a different world. You know, people have been famous since they were 18.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they were 28, 29, they're the biggest band in the world. They went through a tragedy where they lost to kind of the guy they all idolized, died in a horrific way. I mean, I can't even imagine being whatever they were, 25. They're literally on the cusp, and then that happens
Yeah.
in such a fucking extreme way. And look, they've lived a really different life to us, and then for them to all of a sudden to be able to go, right, we're going to put ourselves out there, and you walk away thinking Kirk Hammett's really chill and cool, a little bit strange. Rob Trujillo just seems apparently he is the nicest dude as well. Rob Trujillo. Lars is just on a different thing. You know, he had a famous sort of sporting dad.
Yeah.
Maybe had it, you know, life was maybe a bit easier for him. And you see how kind of damaged James Hetfield is because of his upbringing. It's completely different. I think Jehovah, completely fucking different.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a brave thing. But in reality, you're watching, you think that's a really brave idea. But there's some absolute elite comedy gold. And I fucking love it. There's some shit that just
Gotta have balance.
Yeah, I'm like, but there's a bit in it. There's the geezer who's the therapist, and he leans over to James and he goes, "Here you go," and he wrote some lyrics. It's so, and James is like, "Cheers." Looks at the lyrics, puts it in the bin. It's just like David Brent, and that's just like, oh god, I'm gonna have to watch it. I've got it on Blu-ray. I'm gonna have to watch it. It's top tier.
Bringing it all back now.
Oh god, I'm cracking. My mouth hurts because I'm cracking up because it's so mental. Fucking hell.
You mentioned there as well that you've met a couple of members of Metallica. So who have you met, and when did that happen?
Well, I met Jason Newsted, which is insane because he hadn't been in Metallica for like 13 years at this point, and I was doing I was at festival doing interviews. There's me and Angus, our TM, and someone. And I'm doing interviews. This is before Urne. And all of a sudden, I'm in the backstage area, and all of a sudden, all these other people, I'm like, kind of like watching people. All these other people who are in big bands and what have you, are like looking. It was like meerkats, and I'm like in this interview, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on over here? And I'm trying to not be, you know, I'm trying to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, kind of wandered out the interview, climbed up like this pole at download in the back area. I was like, fucking Jason Newsted. I jumped down. I was like, Angus, we need to go. Ollie, get your camera. And all of a sudden, you can be whoever. You can be the headliner, whatnot, and all these other big bands. But a guy's walked in who was in the biggest metal band of all time when they were the biggest band. And no one's really going to him. And I think everyone's just staring at him like, you haven't really been seen in 13 years, and here you are. And I was like, fuck that. Get out my way. Couldn't give a bollocks, mate. Get out my way. And I was just like, and it was weird. It was a day, we played the day before, but we were doing press the next day. And before he went into like his area, and I felt like he got certainly treated a bit better, even though they weren't headlining. They weren't on his Newstead band, wasn't on the main stage or the second, but he's still dating Newstead. He still probably had a lot of a different, he's, looked after. And I was like, mate, sorry to do this. Can I grab a photo? He's like, yeah, sure, man. And I just remember looking at him, and he's had short hair, and I looked at him, and he just looked like Lou Reed. And I was like, fuck's sake. And I don't know why I thought he was going to have the big undercut, like with the long hair, looking like this fucking angry. And I was just like, just look like a granddad, mate. And I was just like, oh, and I was like, yeah, man, you're the reason I play bass. And he's like, how's that going for you? And I was like, fucking great. That was it. And we took the picture. And me and Angus never do like the metal sign. It's just not. I've just never really do it. But Angus is like that. He doesn't do it either. Angus is like doing a metal sign, and I'm doing like a thumbs up. I never do that stuff in pictures. And then he walked away, and me and Angus walked back into the press thing and just sat there. And I can only liken it to, there's an episode of Father Ted where Father Ted kicks Bishop Brennan up the arse, and he goes into shock because he can't believe he kicked him up the arse. And he's just sat there. And I just remember me and Angus sat there. Still hasn't, fucking been 10 years. Still hasn't sunk in. And I'm just sat there. And I looked at Angus and I was like, no way. That was it for the rest of the day. Just like, but the best one, so we play in Sonosphere. And this is quite funny, like with everything that's happened. And I remember telling the person this story. So I've sorted all some of my best mates out for Sonosphere, and me and Angus are in Hang the Bastard, and go into the backstage area. And in Metallica, as most headliners, they have their own backstage world,
Yep.
So I walk in, and there's like Angus and a three of our mates just sort of staring like in shock. And I can't see what they're staring at because I haven't quite walked backstage yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you all right, lads? And they're like, look. And I look, and there's Kirk Hammett with like his security guard and he's like roadie who you see on loads of Metallica things. And someone's giving him like a free guitar case or something. I think he'd come out to say thanks. And I looked at him, and I swear my heart was going insane. And I was my hardest to play it cool. I went, give him some space, like that. And I walked beyond them, pretending I was on the phone, but I was getting the camera ready, and I was like,
right.
Oh god. And I was like, lads, fucking come away. And I'm gonna fucking die. It's not. And this is the thing. I'm like, God knows. This is how I know if I met Hetfield, I'd absolutely faint. And I was like, oh. And he started to walk past us to go into like his backstage world, and I was like, it's not gonna happen. I can't just go over there. He's got this massive dude with him. And I swear to fuck, around the corner, it was like a glow around the corner. I'd never met him at the time. Joe Duplantier walks around the corner, and Kirk goes, hey man. He leaves his security guard, high fives Joe, and I swear at that moment, I fucking moonwalked. I was smooth as anything. And next thing, I'm next to Kirk, and I'm like, mate, I am never getting this opportunity again. Can I have a photo? And he was just like, yeah, sure, man. Took the photo, and his security guard was like, hey. And I was like, I've fucking done it now, mate. Like that. I walked off, looked at my mates like the most vicious,
untouchable,
vicious football fan, and they're standing there looking at me, and I was like, oh god, it sounds so fucking bad, but my adrenaline was going insane.
Yeah.
And I was like, you fucking do it. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, fuck. And I like that, and it went silent, and someone just went, did you even press snap? And I, snap. I was like, and I couldn't even remember taking the photo. Snap. That's always makes me laugh. Did you even press snap? And I was like, I don't fucking know. I couldn't even remember. Like getting the phone and taking a picture. And I was like, guys, I need to go and lay down on the beanbags. I was just like, oh. Like, bring me water, bring me a brown bag so I can breathe. And I text my mum, and I don't know if you'll know this reference. I was like, look who I've just met. And she went, oh, Wagner from X Factor.
Oh my God, I do get that.
Yeah. And I was like, no, mum. And she's like, oh, okay. That's nice. And I was just there like, guys, I'm laying there on the beanbag, like someone's holding my arm. I'm like, oh, I can't believe what's just happened to me. And it was just, fucking hell. And luckily I walked off because Lars come out. I don't even know what I would have been like. But Thankfully, I was long gone by then. But I tell you, I thought that was it for me. Like, fan me down, guys.
Hmm.
Like, bring me aqua. I am struggling here. But it was so funny. So I was saying it to Joe, and I was like, and God, and he was like, yeah. And I went, then you walked around the corner, mate. And I was like, Joe, it's at that moment that I did realise that the French were more romantic. And he's like, shut up, man. And I was like, honestly, it's like the best looking man I've ever seen. And he's just like, fuck yeah, now what
So
you want?
Joe was your guardian angel in the moment you needed him the most.
Yeah, and honestly, it's so funny. And then obviously, fast forward X amount of years, and we're now like pals. But like, oh, I was because obviously we're massive Metallica fans, and he was telling us stuff, and I won't go into that. And it's like, oh, fucking hell, wicked. And yeah, saying that the last shows with Gojira we did, obviously we did the album. We spent so much time with him,
Hmm.
and he come up to me and he was just like, "I finally get you." He was like, "I know you're really, really." He's like, "I know you're funny. I just don't know what you're going on about, but I think it's funny." And he gave me a hug, and I was like, "Cheers, mate." He was
I
like, "I
think,
just don't
thank you.
understand what you." Yeah, he was just like, "I just don't understand the fucking word you go on about." He says he just sits there, I'm like laughing at you, like, "What's going on?" But yeah, we all just spoke about Metallica for like
Hmm.
2.5 weeks in New York, and that was our thing. So yeah, there you go. That's me meeting Metallica.
So do you think, because I imagine the chances would be likely, do you think there is still moments to come where you could potentially meet James Hetfield?
I couldn't. No. If do you know if someone went to me, go on. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I'd just be like last week, RTM. He works with a guy called Glenn Hughes, who's in Deep Purple,
Hmm.
one of the greatest singers in any genre ever. And I'm a massive Glenn Hughes fan, and he's just like, yeah, come. He played Bexhill, this beautiful venue down here, and he was like, come and meet Glenn. And I was just like, he's like in his 70s now, and I was just like, fuck. But as soon as I was there, I was fine.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, cool. And I was like, talk about football. Glenn's a big football guy. And I was like, well, we're going to be best mates. And we spoke about football for ages. And but with Hetfield, I wouldn't even bother.
Yeah. You want to
It would just be
preserve that image.
yeah. And if he was a bit of a if he wasn't what I wanted him to be, it'd break my heart.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you know what I mean. But saying that, if he did tell me to fuck off, I'd be like, they literally don't give a shit. So so I don't know. Um, but yeah, I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah. I kind of had the same things. Like one of my other favorite bands is Hailstorm.
Uh
And
huh.
like Lizzie Hale is like my biggest idol ever. And I've
Hmm.
often said that I reckon I could probably like meet Slash and keep my cool, but if I met Lizzie Hale, I would just like have to tell her how much I love her and how much she means to me and how much she changed my life. And then I've met her twice this year now. And when I last time I met her at the Heavy Music Awards, I didn't know she was going to be there. And I'd met her before at this point. So, like, we had a conversation before very briefly, and it was amazing as always. She's so lovely. And she's also like one of my biggest crushes ever. And at the Heavy Music Awards, I was like all dressed up, looking fancy. And the first thing she said to me, she was like, "Oh, hey, Jazmin, you look gorgeous." And like looked me up and down. And I was like, "Oh, that's me. That's me done for
Yeah,
the rest of my life."
yeah. That's. I tell you what. I don't know if you ever listened to it. She done a song with one of her favorite singers. I don't know too much about her, but I know one of her favorite singers is Tom Keither from Cinderella,
Mm-hmm.
and she done a song with Tom Keither, uh, recording. It's wicked, but she did. There's a live version of it, and that in certainly today in rock and metal when they go anyone who sings a little bit, anyone goes, God, that person sounds like. I mean, I've heard some ones where they've gone, oh, it sounds like Tina Turner. There's no one in rock and metal that sounds like Tina Turner. Let's get it right. It's what you think. People say that. I feel like people say that if you haven't listened to enough. I'm a big soul guy. I don't know if you know. you know, I mean, I've got a big fucking portrait of Sam Cooke there, Otis Redding there, whatnot. My cat's called Otis after Otis Redding. So when people talk about, you know, I've got myself into some trouble because I'm quite vocal. There's a certain singer of a certain band that are really big at the moment, and someone was like, "Oh my god, he's like this and that," and I was like, "You need to go and listen to the first two George Michael records. If you think that person's that what you're saying, your life will change if you go and do that." But Lizzie, I think, is on another level to a lot of singers, male, female, fucking cat, dog, whatever. She's on another level to a lot of singers in this rock and metal world. And I'll send you this thing she does with Tom Kiefer, this live version, and their voices mesh so well because that sort of screaming thing. And it's just sad for Tom Kiefer, his vocal cords on one of his sides have been paralyzed 3 times, and so he only can use one part of his voice. And wow, I'll send you it. It's Nobody's Fool, and it's she could do, if she wanted to do something outside of this, she can easily do it.
Literally,
I don't know too much about that. I don't know much about that group at all. I will say that, but she's extremely fucking talented. And I have met Slash.
Oh,
when he was in Velvet Revolver.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
When
I bunked off of school and met him in Hammersmith.
How many times have you bunked off of school for rock and metal?
I did bunk off school once to see Machine Head, and I met Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and Ricky Gervais called me mate when he was at school. He was on the way to do the radio show, and he called me mate, Greg. And he's like, "Mate, I can't talk. I'm in fucking geography." And I went, "Guess who's the?" I gave the phone to Ricky, and he's like, "Greg." He's in Tottenham Court Road. He's like, "Greg." And he's like, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, all Ricky Gervais did was like, just down the phone." And okay, Greg was like, "Who the fuck's that?" Well, that's Ricky Gervais. And all I heard was a teacher go, "Greg," and he went, "Miss, I just met Ricky Gervais," and the phone went dead. But I bunked off a fair few times. One time I did get caught. I was trying to sneak out early, and the head of the year caught me and brought me back to school in his car. So then the rumor was like, "Oh, Mr. Graham's had a bit of Nally." Yeah. I was like, he hasn't, you know, fuck off. Because I was like, as much as I was a metal and rock guy, I was also a big sport person.
Right.
So I was just like the kind of go between. And I was like, nothing happened with me and Mr. Graham. You know, he just caught me trying to bunk off. And I bought a sausage roll, and they was like, "I bet you did." And I was like, "I fucking did."
Just making it worse.
I was on the way to see Slayer and Sepultura, and I think System of a Down. I think at the Astoria. I think it was that show. And I was like, "Fucking hell." I ended up getting there. It's just obviously, you know, as a kid, you want to be at the front and be. And now I couldn't think of anything fucking worse. I think I went to the front for Slayer the next year, 2000, whatever it was, 2002. And I was like, never again. Like, I've never been anywhere near the front of a show again. I was just like, horrific. Just remember feeling awful.
Absolutely back of the room kind of gal.
No, fucking, I prefer to stand at the venue. Like, Jesus. Yeah, I've become one of those people. I know it sounds really bad. Like, I'm just like, just nip out. Avoid the rush.
Yeah, easy escape.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, pretty much.
Right, I have one more question for you for the last 5 minutes on this.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of Metallica merch do you own? Do you remember like your first Metallica band shirt that you bought? What's the weirdest piece of like Metallica memorabilia you have?
I got a Metallica summer sanitarium shirt. I think 99. I ordered that in from a catalogue. I have a second. I have this cool thing, which some people. So they reissued loads of vinyls the last few years, but there's this box set that a lot of people don't have. This Justice for All box set.
Oh, that's a chunky boy.
And yeah, and it's not. They recently did a remaster of this album on box set, but this isn't that. and that is it.
Ooh.
And it's just got literally a track or two per side. That someone was like, my aunt's bought me this. He was like, I don't like Metallica. Give me an offer, and I was like, £20. It's worth a lot more than £20.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a Deaf Magnetic coffin, which is somewhere, and it's in the coffin as flags, CDs, DVDs.
Right. Okay.
I've got some books. Obviously, I've got all the vinyls and shit. I've got some really wicked kind of books like that they've been doing. They released one of the photographer released a whole Black Album book, covering them in the studio and on tour. I don't my I've got this really cool Master of Puppets book they've done, which they've got loads of fans and friends of that era to send in pictures and stories from that time.
That's cool.
And it's cool because stuff that's just not been seen before. And you know, that's something. But yeah, I think this Justice box set, that's certainly one of my sort of like wicked prized possessions.
Yeah.
When it comes to Metallica, I had the St. Angus t-shirt. Angus still has his. You know, when Angus gets a little bit angry, St. Angus.
I was just going to make that. I was going to make that.
He got really annoyed. I'll send a picture. He got really annoyed with his pedal board at practice once, and he was like that. So I took a quick picture, painted all the shit around it, and I called it St. Angus. And I've got the artwork ready to go. And there's a picture of us and Joe Duplantier in the studio, and I was like, "We're going to do a Metallica like St. Angus cover album with us with Joe." And he's just like, "Are we?" And I was like, "Yeah." I don't think he's going to appear on it, but I need to let people know that there was a possibility, which he didn't agree to, but I told him there was. And I told him about it was going to be called St. Angus. But yeah, I used to have loads of merch stuff. I used to have loads of t-shirts, and you know, over time, put on a bit of timber. Can't wear too many metal shirts, you know, and kind of got rid of bits and bobs over time. But I had to balance out. Like, I like buying like box sets from bands now. That's my new sort of favorite thing. So, but yeah, if I had the space, I might be having a bad time. But I have to be wise.
There are worse things to be addicted to than band merch.
Well, there was my parents' attic might tell you otherwise.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I'll go in. Oh, and I still do have a copy of St. Anger from the day I bunked off. But yeah, my parents' attic, God bless them. I go up there and I'm like, oh God, I can't let go of this one. I haven't worn it in 20 years. I'm like, oh, I can't.
Just in case, maybe one day.
Yeah, and I think about eBay and I'm like, no, it's not yet. Not yet. It'd be too hard for me to deal with. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, there's less than a minute left on this call now, so we're going to wrap up there. So, again, thank you for having this chat with me. I hope you had a good time, and I hope it's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's okay.
Thank you for having me, and I will probably see you in December.
You will see me in December, because I have to make that up to you for missing the last one.
How dare you? Never be forgiven.
That's okay. I can live with that. Cool. I'm sure I'll chat to you before that anyway.
Yeah, probably in about 5 minutes.
Cool. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to I'm Your Biggest Fan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your nan in the post. Every little helps. You can follow us everywhere at biggestfan_pod. Follow me everywhere at Wrathchild_jazz. Noizze at Noizze UK on everything. Noizze Podcast Network at Noizze Podcast Network on everything. And Satanic Tico at Satanic Tico and at Pitch Black Nor. If you have a band member in mind that you think would be perfect for this podcast, perfect for this topic of conversation, or maybe you are the band member and you're the super fan, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All other info can be found below in the description. And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you soon.